Every so often, I have to answer a question that nobody in my audience has asked me, but somebody in my audience should have. I should have received a question at some point along the lines of, look, Isel, I've heard your philosophy about sobriety. I've heard what you have to say about the politics of the transgender movement on one hand, and gay rights, gay marriage, gay equality, status of homosexual society on the other. How do you actually reconcile these things? How do you actually live with them? How do you actually talk to people face to face? I do meet and talk to transgender people, and they're often very nice and talkative people. I have very pleasant conversations with transgender people, and I sometimes wonder how unpleasant those conversations might be if those people had seen my YouTube channel and knew my political positions on these things. Now, there's an imperfect parallel here. If you're an atheist, how do you talk to Muslims? If you're an atheist, how do you talk to religious people within your own family, whatever your family may be Muslim, maybe Christian? How do you deal with complete strangers? How do you deal with preachers on the street who are trying to convert you and others? How do you deal with dangerous cults that may have how do you deal with these contrasts, contradictions, paradoxes that surround you? But especially in the context of someone who may be your friend, or maybe your brother or sister, maybe someone you care about, for other reasons. So nobody has asked me this. You know, we've spent quite a lot of time in stand-up comedy clubs within the last year, shall we say. There are transgender stand-up comedians. There are transgender people in the audience, and they joke around with me. There are, of course, there's every possible permutation of gay and non-binary and what have you, but you are around people from all those walks of life. And one of my brothers is gay, is openly homosexual. I do not have any people who are either transgender or cross-dressing in my family that I know of. But it's not implausible that this is the sort of thing that I could have a best friend from high school, or a brother or a cousin, where this is what you talk about. Now, what's actually most interesting to me about this is the role of the unknown. Politics gets really boring when all of the variables and all the factors and all the outcomes are known. So, a lot of vegans don't believe in fluoride. They don't believe in using toothpaste that has fluoride. Let me tell you something, guys. All the scientific facts surrounding dental care are known. There are no mysteries. There are really, I have met and spoken to many vegans who refuse to believe in soap for their hands. They refuse to believe in the microbial theory of disease. They don't believe in bacteria. I wish I were joking. These people really exist. Well, the politics of soap, the politics of dentistry, this is really totally in the realm of the known, right? Religion, it's 50-50. From the perspective of a nihilistic atheist with religion, we're dealing with something totally known. Okay, I know the reality of the Christian Bible. I know the reality of the Christian God. I know everything. There's no divine mystery for me. There aren't even historical or literary mysteries for me. There's no scientific question unresolved concerning the Christian faith or the Muslim faith or the Buddhist faith. There are no unanswered questions for me. But from the other perspective, from the perspective of people who are true believers within the religion, there are all these terrible unknowns, these terrifying unknowns, including what is going to happen to them after they die. What were they before they were born? I mean, you list off. Are they being visited by the ghost of their deceased grandfather? They live with all kinds of unknowns, and they have the long dark night of the soul. They have gnawing doubts that they try to counterpose to their faith. That may include doubts about the history, about the literature. For example, about slavery. You can talk to Muslims who are really, their heart is tearing itself apart. They're really emotionally messed up about the reality of slavery in their religion, historically and today. I hate to tell you this. Slavery is a very important issue in the history of Buddhism, right? But for me, the history of slavery in Buddhism, it's a down-to-earth, cut-and-dried, simple matter, just like fluoride and dental care and soap. This is the world of known factual things. But it's 50-50, because when I'm talking to people who are inside the religion, that's very different. Now, likewise, I've made many videos talking about this. Meditation. For me, there is no mystery. Prayer, for me, there's no mystery. Reincarnation, ghosts, for me, this is the realm of things that are known, things I'm completely certain about. But for people inside the religion, it's unknown. So when you are bridging that gap, when I am sitting and talking to someone who's a Buddhist, I'm very artful about this. I'm aware that they're a person living with mysteries. Okay. And how I talk to them, and what am I trying to do in that conversation? Am I trying to bring them into the world of real things, the world of unbelief? Or, what is the purpose of the conversation? Interesting question. And now, again, without digressing, nationalism is very similar, actually. People who believe in the glory and destiny of the Chinese race and the Chinese, I've dealt with some Chinese nationalists lately. For example, nationalism, communism. Yes. Okay. Let's say I have a good friend named Jeff. And let's say Jeff is gay. And let's say Jeff has been aware that he's gay from the age of 14. Around 14, 15, he was figuring out, for different people, figure out different stages. So, really, between 15 and 18, by the time he hit 18, he completely knows who he is. He knows he's living his life. He's solid. He's not in denial about his homosexuality. He's not conflicted about it. But let's say Jeff is now 25, and he comes to me and says that he is interested in making the transition from being a gay man to being a transgender woman, being a trans woman. Okay. Now, footnote, not everyone who transitions is gay. There are heterosexual men who transition. There are, again, when we switch to genders, we talk about women. Not all women who want to make the transition are lesbians. But that is a footnote, because I'm just dealing with this one example of this friend of mine called Jeff. The most important thing I can do is actually not to deal with the realm of scientific certainties, but to deal with the uncertainties, with the realm of the unknown. So I think you can imagine, it'd be very easy for you, and some of you in the audience, you may have had this conversation with Jeff, with your brother, with someone you know and care about in your life. You may have tried to get out stacks of medical reports and say, oh, well, look at this scientific evidence. The reality is here's the percentage of people after they've had the surgery who end up committing suicide. Here's the percentage of people after surgery who have this side effect and this side effect. Of the people who take this drug, here's how many are unhappy about it. This is the realm of scientific certainties. And certainly my view of the world is not completely uninformed by scientific certainties. But here's a true exercise in nihilism. Here's the philosophy of nihilism being demonstrated. Well, Jeff, this is about happiness. Okay? You're not talking about taking these drugs for any reason other than your own happiness. I didn't go to Cambodia for my happiness. I didn't do humanitarian work in Laos for my own happiness. I didn't study the Chinese language for my own happiness, or the Cree Ojibwe language. I didn't get involved with the vegan movement and have it ruin my life for my happiness. There were a lot of things in my life that are not about my happiness. But what we are talking about now, Jeff, is just you wanting to be happy. I'm going to tell you two things, Jeff. Some gay men, some men in your situation, think they will be happier if they take testosterone blocking drugs. Right? Drugs that will allow them to accentuate the feminine features of their face, their body, their voice, right? Testosterone blockers. But you know what, Jeff? There are some gay men who think they will be happier if they take testosterone boosting drugs. There are gay men who are bodybuilders. There are gay men who are porn stars. There are gay men who take testosterone boosters. Guess what? Doesn't make you heterosexual. It doesn't. Okay. Some of you might have this twisted. Nope. if a gay man takes testosterone boosting drugs, and in case you didn't know, almost all of the performance enhancing steroids for men, either they directly boost testosterone or they indirectly do. When you look at the cycle of the many chemical effects, one of the chemical effects will be boosting testosterone levels or preventing testosterone from being cleared out of the drug and thus sustaining higher testosterone levels for a long time. This kind of thing, Hey, why those gay men do that, Jeff? They do it in order to be happy. And Jeff, I know you've been through this series of consultations with doctors, psychologists, possibly surgeons, possibly, therapists, psychiatrists, whatever the particular university will be. I'm willing to bet not a single one of those doctors has asked you if you think you would be happier with higher testosterone, more muscle mass, larger and longer lasting erections, and a higher sex drive. Being a gay man, going out and having gay sex, going to the gym, all these things, instead of less muscle mass. Not just lower sex drive, but the total inability to have an erection, total inability to have an orgasm. The debilitating effects of the testosterone blocking drugs, and then all the knock-on impacts that's going to have in your life psychologically. Now, this is ultimately what I have to say to Jeff. Jeff, if you think you will be happier having low testosterone instead of the normal level of testosterone you have now or superhuman levels of testosterone, the truth is you don't know. That's unknown. You've made up a story in your own head to convince yourself that you will be happy if you take these drugs, and then possibly that after you take the drugs, you have this surgery, so on and so forth. You have told yourself that, but you don't know. Here's the really fucked up part, Jeff. You could try. Now, we can just go to the gym. I mean, it depends where you live, but probably any gym in any downtown major city. You may have to go to a special gay gym, but I doubt it. You can probably just hang around and meet some gay bodybuilders. Obviously you can look up their YouTube channels. And you could ask these guys, does it really make you happy? Does it really make you happy being muscular and dynamic and strong and getting your dick sucked by all these? Is this really happiness for you? And you know what? Some of these guys are going to tell you yes. And you ask them, don't you think you'd be happier on testosterone blockers and withering away and having all of the debilitating effects of these, the transgender hormone things? And, again, the long-term effects are even scarier than the short-term effects. Don't you think you'd rather be weak? Don't you think you'd rather be disabled rather than enabled by the drugs you're taking? You can even talk to them. What do you think the knock-on effects would be for how much reading you get done, how much work you get done, how many hours you sleep a day? I mean, there are all kinds of things, right, with these drugs. You know what? You could, without even trying the drugs yourself, you could talk to some gay bodybuilders, gay porn stars, gay hustlers, guys who are on testosterone boosting drugs, and they will tell you how wonderful their whole life is and how happy they are because they took that route. Okay? Now, let me just ask you, why didn't a single one of your psychologists or psychiatrists suggest this, even if it's just as a trial? Like, even if it's just one crazy self-destructive summer you have. Okay? Like, why was this not entertained as an empirical experiment? Taking those testosterone boosting drugs, hints, foreshadowing, they're bad for you. It's not good for you. But you know what's worse? Testosterone blockers. You know what's worse? Castration. Having a part of your body, a sexual organ, cut off permanently. the disabling effects of both the drugs and the surgery for making the transition that way. It's unbelievably worse than, this bodybuilding route. And again, by the way, again, foreshadow, I don't endorse this kind of bodybuilding. I don't endorse taking testosterone boosters, what have you. I really don't. But I mean, you can see interviews with people who steroids and to be on testosterone booster specifically. I remember an interview. Many of you will have seen the same movie. It was a documentary movie I saw. And they interviewed a gay man who was dying of HIV/AIDS. And, he showed pictures of himself, and it was like his blood cell count had dropped and dropped and dropped. He withered away and withered away. And then the doctor said, okay, look, we're going to put you on steroids and testosterone booster. And he looked like the cover of Men's Health magazine. It was this total transformation. He went from being this skeletal, pale, weak, sickly figure to being gorgeous. And it doesn't last forever. Again, I don't know if he has 5, 10, 15 years like that. Yeah, that's another question, the long-term effects. But this guy, he was really dying. And by the way, you can meet people where it's some other illness. It's cancer or what have you. It's not necessarily age. They have some debilitating illness and they're given these drugs. I had a friend, he had a spinal injury and they put him on steroids that did also boost it. He said, whoa, this is unbelievable. I should have a spinal injury all the time. He felt superhuman, and he said to me, interestingly, he said to me that he knew. So I think he only did it for one night. And he said, no, I can never do this again. Because he said, I know the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. But he really felt the power of these drugs. And, the spinal, you let him walk, now I think he would have eventually walked anyway. But I think his recovery took a week instead of 3 months or something because he was put on. These are muscle building steroids. It was building muscle in his back where he had this back injury. That's why it was put on, But he talked to me about just what an amazing experience it was to be on these boosters. Okay, you can look at examples of people where their whole life has been transformed for the better, and they endorse these drugs, what have you. And again, whether you are gay or straight is a completely independent variable. Okay, whether you specifically are a gay man who enjoys cross-dressing, whether you specifically are a gay man who enjoys playing the effeminate role rather than the more masculine role, none of that is related to your testosterone levels, your hormone levels, your endocrinology in any way. There's no relationship, right? My point is you can take testosterone booster and still be an effeminate bottom, to be blunt. You don't have to be a dominant top to be into it. You don't, okay? And you may have gotten it into your head that these physically and mentally disabling drugs, testosterone blockers and the kind of simulated estrogen, you may think that's going to enable your life, but there is a very literal biological sense in which it is disabling your life. Now, I said at the beginning I had two things to say, and that was thing one. Okay, guess what thing two is? Here's the problem with the testosterone booster. If this is just about your happiness, right, then these drugs you take, whether it's a testosterone blocker or a testosterone booster, they are on the same level as cocaine. And you know what? You can probably go to that same gym and talk to the same guys. You can talk to some gay bodybuilders and some gay hustlers and ask them if they think cocaine has made their lives better or worse. Don't get me wrong. Some people will tell you cocaine's ruined their life. It is not hard to find people who will say to you that in all honesty and on balance, cocaine has been a net positive in their life, that it brought a lot of joy into their life. And, they made all these friends and whatever it is. Sorry, I've told this anecdote before, but there was one medical doctor who walked up to Peter Bregan at the end of one of his lectures out of the audience. And this medical doctor said to him angrily, "How dare you say all these terrible things about cocaine? If it wasn't for cocaine, I never would have finished medical school." He was defending cocaine. He would have never studied for his exams that helped him focus. And it was kind of a friend of a friend of a friend. I got an account from a musician, and he had one hit album, and he never would have finished that album without cocaine. And he said he and the whole band, they were all using cocaine sparingly. So, and get into the history of this. Okay, but here's the thing. So let's just say it's at the same gym. We have a gym full of gay bodybuilders and gay hustlers and gay porn stars all hang out at the same gym. That's my gym. That's the gym I go to. I like being the only straight guy in the room. It's not my current gym. This does not beat this here. Plenty, any major city. This is a gym that's not hard to find. Okay, here's the problem. This is just about happiness. We're not dealing with the objective scientific facts. We're not dealing with the question of your ethical or political responsibility to make the world a better place, neither in relation to Cambodia, nor Saudi Arabia, nor Israel, nor Canada, nor anything else, right? We're not, no question of making the world a better place. No question even of you being a better person. No question even of morally or ethically, 5 years from now, who do you want to be? 20 years from now, who do you want to be? Do you want to become a cocaine addicted scumbag? You want to become, someone who's dependent on either testosterone blockers or testosterone boosters? Who do you want to? All kinds of questions here we are not entertaining because we're just framing this in terms of happiness. I can go to that gym and talk to a bodybuilder and gay hustler, and he says, yeah, you know what? Cocaine's been a very positive thing in his life. He owes a lot of his happiness and joy in life to cocaine. It's been more positive than negative. And I can turn over here. I can turn from the leg machine to the military press machine or something. And there's another bodybuilder and gay hustler who says, don't do it, bro. Don't do it. And he says, honestly, cocaine has brought tragedy and death and heartbreak into his life. And he's seen the harm it did to himself and others. You can meet someone who says their own father was a cocaine addict and it ruined their family. They can say their brother was a cocaine addict and he's dead. Or you can meet people who reflect on their own life and they say they were cocaine addicts for 10 years. Or not even an addict, just an occasional user. And they realize now in retrospect how negative it was. And here's the thing. If you meet those two guys at the same gym and you look at their lives and you look at the outcomes, you don't know which one you are going to be. It's unknown. The outcomes are unknown. Okay? And when you are dealing with human happiness, not something objectively real, okay? The brain damage caused by cocaine is an objectively real fact. It shows up on an MRI scan. When you're dead, we can remove your brain from the cadaver and we can study it and we can see the damage you did to your brain with your cocaine habit. That is objectively real. Happiness is your subjective attitude towards things. Two identical twins could live exactly the same life and do the same amount of cocaine and the same amount of testosterone boosting steroid drugs and have two totally different attitudes. One of them sees their life as a comedy and the other one sees their life as a tragedy. And at least hypothetically, it's exactly the same life. Okay? When we're talking about happiness, you don't know. You're signing up for a course of treatment, a course of medication, where the damage that is going to be done to you is known, is scientifically real. And your happiness, the presumed benefit you're going to get out of it, apart from being selfish and self-indulgent and short-term thinking, it's something that is fundamentally unknown and unreal. So when I have a gay friend who's interested in transitioning, when I have a gay friend who's interested in getting on these drugs or doing this surgery, this is the fundamental message I have to deliver to them. You are not sick. There is no drug in the world that can treat you or make you better or make you happy because you do not have an illness. There is nothing wrong with you. And you are not broken. There is no surgery that can fix you. People do all kinds of terrible things to themselves and others in pursuit of this happiness you're talking about, running away from this dysphoria, this misery you're talking about. I want you to find the maturity and self-discipline to do what's right for yourself, to do what's right for the better person you could be 5 years from now. And why don't you give some fucking thought to the rest of humanity?